Hello, I'm Dwania Peele, and welcome to Origin Story. This is the space where we go beyond the bios and the highlight reels to uncover the real journeys of women entrepreneurs. The moments when an idea first sparked, the risks that followed, the pivots that tested them, and the breakthroughs that changed everything. Every business you see today started with a decision. There was a moment where someone chose to believe in their vision enough to begin. On this series, I sit down with incredible women who are building businesses, creating impact, and redefining success on their own terms. Because every empire starts with an origin story. So I would like to introduce our guest, Andrea Welling of Andrea Welling Leadership Coaching. And I am so excited to have her here. Now, before Andrea takes us back, I want to remind you to like the video, as it's an easy and free way to support the channel and to spread her story. So let's dive right in. Andrea, tell us who you are and where this idea first started.
Wow, so much. Thank you for having me here. Really excited. And I am a serial entrepreneur at this point. So I'll talk a little bit about the first business I had, which was actually in the 2000s, and it was called Ladybug Organics. And that was really meeting clients with, exceptional quality of local fruits and vegetables. And through that process, really learned what it took to be an entrepreneur. And really from the bottom up, we did everything. We had to wear all the different hats, and it was both challenging and incredible. And so through that process, I realized I really enjoyed working directly with people on their leadership skills, on their business planning skills. And so after that business, I was in the nonprofit sector for over 20 years and was supporting entrepreneurs with their startups and business planning and also strategic direction. And so with Andrea Welling Leadership Coaching, it's really about business coaching and leadership coaching. Just the other day, I was at Vancouver Startup Week speaking about burnout prevention. So one thing that happened to sort of in the first business was I faced a burnout. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs face a lot of mental health challenges and creating sustainability personally. And so this is a big passion of mine, is to make sure that our businesses are sustainable.
Definitely, definitely. So, you started learning all the ins and outs, then spent a lot of time helping other people learn all the ins and outs. And now you're back to entrepreneurship.
Yes, exactly. And this is, I think, quite a typical journey.
Mhm.
I think oftentimes as we go through our lives, we have different things that we need. So at times when I was a solo income earner, I needed to have employment. But now that I've got a bit more flexibility, now that they're more grown up, I'm able to take more risks again. And then when I was younger with the business, we took more risks. So I think learning entrepreneurship has allowed me to have that flexibility. And I think it's such a great, it's an art and a practice being a business owner. And I think as you do it, you get better. You fail and then you succeed, and then you try again and you get back up and you move forward and you pivot and you're resilient. And I think it keeps you vibrant and alive as well.
I like the fact that you said entrepreneurship is an art and a practice. I've never heard it put that way before. That's a good takeaway. So, was there anything that almost stopped you from starting over again as an entrepreneur?
It takes a lot of work. So I was sort of thinking a little bit about my career and where I'm at, and did I want to take on, this new endeavor and meeting new people in a new capacity. And I decided, yes, I'm going to push myself. And it's a little bit like, I feel like I'm a little bit of a slightly older dog, but I want to keep learning all the new things. And I love that I'm learning technology, and I'm learning more about people, marketing, sales. I learn every day. So that's entrepreneurship allows you to always change and grow. And I think as I continue on in this journey, I want to continue to build resilience within myself. And I think learning every day creates that.
So, what made you think that, okay, I am going to leave 20 years of thinking in this box and jump into really no box of entrepreneurship?
Totally. It's absolutely, this is absolutely true. And this is exactly how I've described it. And I think I have loved working in the nonprofit sector and representing organizations. But of course, you have to do that with some care and representing their brands. But I really felt this creative impulse to want to have my own thought leadership, my own points of view, and be able to express those sort of as freely as I wanted to do. And this has been a creative process. And I think for entrepreneurs, this is often the seed is around creativity and expressing creativity in the world and for yourself. And it very much stemmed from that place. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to sort of go into like, okay, we could go anywhere. And now a few things have landed since last year and when I started again. And it's like, oh, okay, I got a few more guardrails again. But otherwise, a lot of it's pretty wide open. So that's both, fun and a little scary sometimes.
Oh my gosh. So in the first entrepreneurship, first entrepreneurship gig, and then the 20 years,
yes.
what lessons have you learned throughout all that time that's helped you into your current state right now?
Absolutely. One thing that happened with the first business, as I alluded to in my opening, was we had got to 1 million in sales over 5 years. Small business, was really proud of that, but we weren't making money, and it was tough. I was the one looking after the books, and trying to figure that out, and also not being on the same page as my partners, it led to a burnout. And I think I felt very alone. And even though we had a community of clients and I lived in a co-housing community at the time, it was sort of business mentorship that I really needed, business support. And I didn't know that because I was quite young and sort of wanting to do it myself. And I really didn't know who to reach out to. And so this has been a big learning. I took that into the nonprofit sector when we were recruiting mentors and bringing mentors into the program. I'm always talking about mentorship. And then with Andrea Welling leadership coaching, I have my own coach, and also have a therapist too. I really believe in the process of self-awareness builds really solid leadership. And so I have really embraced that process, and I feel it's made me a stronger leader and a stronger entrepreneur overall.
I'm glad you mentioned coach and therapist, because as entrepreneurs, boundary setting is not something we're good at. And having a coach and having a therapist, people who can teach you how to set boundaries, very helpful, right? When you look at where you were with your first business and where you are now, how is it that you're managing to set those boundaries and managing to create that space within your practice? And how are you helping your clients create that space to not burn out?
Absolutely. So when we had the first business, it was called Ladybug Organics, the door was wide open. So people, whatever they wanted, however they wanted, we would do whatever that was. And in some ways, I felt proud of our excellent service. And this also extended to the community where I lived in, where I was willing to help anyone at any time. Nonetheless, I'm only one person with a certain amount of time. And I really learned that I had to be selective, and I had to really look at where I could really make an impact and where I could really leverage my time and energy and resources, and where maybe people, or depending on those customers or clients, they might have needed something more or something extra that I couldn't provide. And so I think the boundaries around how to kind of work with clients is greatly improved, and how I spend my time and energy.
That is really That's something that we all need. You know, we need that balance. We need the boundaries. It
Yeah.
helps us be more successful, especially as women, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of the pressure is on us
Yeah.
to balance our everyday lives as well as our entrepreneurship lives.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a mompreneur. My kids are now, 19 and 22, so I don't need to be here all the time like younger mompreneurs. But nonetheless, there's a balancing act there, 100%. And yeah, and when I say, boundaries, it's still because I'm a yes person and I like to be friendly and I like to hear what everyone's up to. It's so I can get a little I still have to set those boundaries with myself every day because I can kind of get down on different things. And it's just because I love supporting people, but I can't do everything for everybody. And so I've had to let that go, which sounds so logical, but this is not a logical thing. It's an emotional sort of personality part that I have to
Yes.
manage. So,
Yes, it's that song and dance between our brain and our heart.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think as women, we are more socialized to do this, and some of that is a good thing because we thrive in relationships. I mean, so
Mhm.
do men. But I think as women, I've studied child development, and in the teenage years, women are really they really learn about relationships with each other. And I really see that when I gather together with women entrepreneurs, this is how we fill each other's cup. We get a little isolated living at home and working at home, and we come together, and suddenly, oh, it's like, oh, smiles, oh, we understand each other, we feel part of something. This means so much, especially for women. And so I know now also to add that to my cup as frequently as possible, including right now with you. It fills my cup.
I
So,
love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you. So now when you're out and about getting that cup filled, right? And all the all these networking events and such, when people see you now, is there anything they misunderstand about the journey you've taken in order to get to where you are now?
I think sometimes people don't quite understand what I do exactly. And so I think sometimes the word leader is a little bit, people don't quite know what that means. And so I use it quite broadly. It could be as an entrepreneur or it could be as in an organization, but it's basically someone who's making something happen, whether that's a project, a business, or leading people to goals and results. And so this is also the leadership journey is again like entrepreneurship. It's an art and a practice. There's lots to learn, but you do it by putting both feet in and just moving forward. And so I know that it can be quite challenging to, and sometimes you get plateaued. And so this is definitely where my coaching practice comes in. And then sometimes people don't understand coaching. So I try to explain that it's a one-on-one relationship. We can do that in person or online. And it's really about providing you the space and the support to be a strategic partner and accountability partner to really push and move you toward your goals. So yeah, I would say that I have to provide clarity on that piece.
Okay, okay. And that's okay because then for you, it also gives you that opportunity to engage with the person a little bit more and then they can get to know you because you want to have that kind of relationship with your coach. So I can see.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's based on trust. So if you're
Yeah.
going to open up and talk to me as your coach about very deep things that might be really holding you back or be hard in your life, we have to trust each other. And so it is as a business, as a coaching business, it is a process of building trust with people. And this is also an interesting journey. I knew this intuitively, but now I know it more concretely to describe it. So it takes time for people to trust, and I'm enjoying that process through the business.
Okay. So you started this about a year ago,
Yeah,
right? About that. So
9 months in the fall,
in
to
the
late
fall?
summer, early
Oh,
fall.
wow.
Yeah,
So quite new.
yes,
Quite
quite
new.
new.
So at what point did you have that moment that you went, okay, this is working?
So I was at the Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, WEDO Summit. This
Mm-hmm.
was last year in November, and we celebrate Women's Entrepreneurship Day November 19th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was a summit up in Courtney. And my coach and Amy Engelmark puts on an excellent summit there. And I spoke on a financing panel, even though my business is not as much focused on financing. I can support entrepreneurs this way. And I said, okay, sure, I'll do it. And then afterward, the people came up to me and asked me for help, and that what I said resonated with them. And I suddenly went, oh, this was interesting on paper. This was interesting, when I was designing my website, but to actually have people approach me and feel that they see a connection, I would call it's actually kind of a chemistry you have with people,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can work together and they know that I would understand their journey. This was when I know, yes, okay, yes, this has got some great potential and possibility. I should build on this.
Okay. So then that now leads me to what we call here on Origin Story the pivot point. So every entrepreneur reaches a moment where the original plan no longer works the way they expected. Sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it's an opportunity, and sometimes it's a decision that completely changes the direction of their business. Now, I know yours is fairly new, but there might have been moments where you decided, the pivot point, I'm going to shift a little bit. Was there a pivot point that changed the trajectory of the journey that you're on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I had researched about starting a new business was that it can take time to have enough clients to have enough cash flow.
Mhm.
And so as a solo household income earner, the business, it was quite a bit of pressure on the business to be able to, make all of my income, and I didn't have anyone else to rely on. And I think, so I did take some part-time work in order to support myself. And I think, sometimes when you do that, you feel, oh, I don't have quite as much time for my business. But at the same time, it really energizes me and it takes the pressure off. So I think I was talking to some entrepreneurs at my talk yesterday about burnout prevention. Financially, you have to decide, like, what is your situation? How long can you work on your business, say, without bringing in as much income? What is that level? And deciding on that. And that can help take the stress off. So that was a bit of a pivot point that kind of took off the pressure,
Mhm.
and kind of allows me to feel that I don't have to somehow push the business too much than what it's really ready for, and that it will evolve, and that I'm ready for that. So again, a balance of different opportunities and activities.
I like the way how you framed that, because a lot of times entrepreneurs will think, oh my gosh, if I have to go and work somewhere for a bit, I failed. But you just said it was a balance,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
depends on what you know you need in that moment.
yeah. Absolutely. And I'd listened to a number of podcasts where some of these, like, it's quite typical for founders to often still be employed or semi-employed while they're building their business. And I think it's actually it can be kind of a nice blend as well. It just depends on your business itself,
Yeah.
right? All businesses are a little different and what they take from you. And in this case, I'm also doing business advising, helping entrepreneurs with their business plans, which is another big piece of my business. So it really keeps me embedded in the work. So that was kind of, and it came up through another opportunity. It was sort of a word of mouth that came up with that opportunity. And then I know, for me, I feel the universe is speaking to me. It's saying, here's something. This is what you've been
Take
asking
it.
for. Here you
Yes.
go. I said, okay, I'll take it. I didn't push back on that one. I was like, no, thank you. So yeah, so it's also noticing the signs,
Hmm.
and that you're given, I believe you're given signs and signals on your journey, and to be open to responding to some of those signs and signals. So yeah, this was one of them.
And accepting the gift. That was a gift, accept the gift that the universe gave you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So how has being an entrepreneur stretched you personally?
Oh, well, it's so interesting when you work for an organization, there's a really set thing you say. So I was so used to saying blah, 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 blah. I had it all down. I've been doing that for 6 years with Futurepreneur. And suddenly it's like, oh, I have to do my 30-second pitch. And even though I teach that and I do feel quite strong with my 30-second pitch, yeah, the first few times it was all right. But it's gotten better. It's gotten better, but it did feel I was pressuring myself because I wanted it to be perfect. This is the other thing about boundaries and personal sustainability is not to get trapped in perfection. Nonetheless, I decided to take it as a challenge, and each time, okay, I just get a little better, and step by step, and it's gotten much stronger. So yeah, but definitely.
Yeah, because the pressure is now what you say represents you wholly, right? It's not just your business. And then with you, your business is your name.
Absolutely.
Everything is together. So how do I want to present myself? That is quite a bit. It's kind of like when people ask, tell me about yourself. It's sometimes you have to think, what do I want to tell you about myself?
Exactly. And there's, I think, different ways. Sometimes I think what I've noticed, especially with sort of social media and working a little bit with younger people, you don't want to be too formal. You don't want to be too, you want to be conversational. So I definitely have my conversational pieces, but then sometimes if you're in a more formal setting, you might need to be it might be a little more of a set performance per se. But I like flexing in between the two, and I like to be really authentic. And I do feel that that is kind of where, again, the social media or where the younger generation's pointing us toward. And for some of us that are used to having more scripted talks, it can be a little bit, the open-endedness I think scares people, but I like to take it as a challenge. So yeah.
Well, I mean, entrepreneurship does throw a lot of challenges at us. So a good one to start with is, how do I introduce myself? What's my elevator pitch? Always a good challenge to start with.
Exactly.
So because you've been in the business of advisory and you are in the business of coaching, what advice would you give women who are stuck at the beginning?
I think if you're stuck in the very beginning, I would want to review, if you haven't written any kind of a business plan, or you haven't developed like your brand voice or the direction you're taking, I think then I would review that, because that plan should outline your activities and what you're moving toward. So if you're feeling a little stuck, it's to go back to what you wanted to do and what you wanted to implement, and start to do that with a bit more energy and momentum, or with different people, or with new people. And then another big one that I always say to all entrepreneurs is just don't do it alone. So if you're just starting to feel burnout, which is you're starting to feel kind of disengaged from your business, or you're feeling like, I don't know about this, you're questioning yourself, you're in doubt, then I think it's a good time to reach out to someone in your circle who's neutral, or someone like a coach or a therapist, or someone you trust, to give you some feedback, and to discover maybe where you're getting stuck. So everyone's a little different. Sometimes a lot of people struggle with the sales process. So it could be maybe you need some sales training, or you need to work on the sales process or your marketing. Maybe it's the financial side. Maybe you're feeling financial pressure. Maybe it's something about the way your product or service is being produced that is causing a lot of stress, and you need some relief. So, that's also places to investigate are sort of the trouble areas, and see if there's There's ways, there's best practices that we can tap into. And I'm also a big one on, like throw it into chat GPT and see what else you can find. So if you don't think you have an answer, keep looking for it.
Yes. And use the tools, because a lot of times, especially as women entrepreneurs, we don't ask for help a lot. And we need to really tap into our circles and tap into the things that make our lives easier. There are a lot of tools out there, AI tools. You mentioned chat GPT. I mean, why spend one whole day getting all of your email marketing down for the week when you can probably do it in 2 hours? Like, give ourselves a little bit more grace and ask for help. That is really, it's been the thread of advice that I have been hearing throughout these origin story interviews. Like, use your network, ask for help. Ladies, we don't have to be in the struggle Olympics. We can thrive without having to struggle. It's not cute to struggle. Leave that in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think, if you bump into something you can't figure it out, then find someone who can help you figure it out. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's thrive. We can be challenged, but we can overcome challenges, be successful, and thrive.
Yes.
And I agree with you. We don't want or need struggle or suffering, or I call it also lack of personal sustainability, energy sustainability. So yeah.
Wow. Can you believe our time is up already, Andrea? Oh my gosh.
It does fly by.
Flies when you're having fun. Oh,
Yeah.
well, we do have our signature statement that I'd love for you to finish.
Okay.
So finish this sentence, Andrea Welling.
All right, let's do it.
My origin story taught me that
Asking for help isn't failure.
Ooh. Asking for help isn't failure. You heard it here, okay? You heard it here. Oh my gosh, this has been such a healthy conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's such a pleasure to connect and to have such wonderful conversations, and the amazing work that you do helping women entrepreneurs, and excited to continue our collaborations together. It's so much fun.
I know. I might see you in BC.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. And I also would like to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Origin Story. I hope this conversation reminded you that every successful business begins with a decision. It's the courage to start, the resilience to keep going, and the belief that your vision matters. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a woman who's building something powerful of her own. And if you're a woman entrepreneur with a story to tell, our intake form, the link will be in the description. So until next time, keep building, keep believing, and remember, every empire starts with an origin story. Bye for now.